This is episode 2 of me trying to conceive. If you haven't seen the first episode, I'll link it here. I actually got pregnant in that first episode, but then I had a miscarriage, which is what we're going to talk about today. If miscarriages are triggering for you or you don't want to hear about it for any reason, I'll put a little caption on the screen. I'm not sure if miscarriage is going to be the only thing I talk about in this video. It depends how long I talk about it for, but the caption will either say this is not the video for you, or it'll have a timestamp of where you can click to in the video so that you don't have to hear about it. But I thought that I would share my miscarriage experience because it's something that not a lot of people talk about, which is fine. Like, it's so personal, but I know that I had seen one person talk about their experience of a miscarriage before I had a miscarriage, and I'm glad that I had seen it because I kind of knew what to expect. It made it a little easier to go through. I think if I had no idea what to expect, it would have been worse. So I will talk about it, and hopefully this is helpful in some way for someone. So, okay, today is the 7th of May. My birthday was on Monday, the 3rd of May. That was the day that we came back to school after the school holidays. So I went to work on Monday. Everything was fine. I was keeping it my little secret that I was pregnant. I was so excited. And then Tuesday, the 4th of May, I came to work. Everything was fine. I always go to the bathroom just before the bell goes in the morning so that I don't need to go to the toilet during that first block. So I went to the toilet at like 5 to 9 and there was blood all over my underwear. And just immediately my heart dropped. Even though, like, rationally I knew it was probably still fine, I just started freaking out. I was like, this might be a miscarriage, this might be the end. And I was also freaking out because, like, the bell was about to go and I had no time at 5 to 9 to actually, like, figure out what I was gonna do. And I was like, do I try and find someone right now, or do I just go about my day, try and make it to morning tea time, and figure out what I'm gonna do then? I decided I was going to just power through and do something about it at morning tea. And we got to about 9:15, I want to say, and I just, my head wasn't in it. I wasn't focused on my job, on my class. I was just freaking out about the blood. So my teacher aide came in at about 9:30, and I got the class busy and I told her what had happened. I was like, I didn't want to tell anyone that I was pregnant yet, but like, now I'm bleeding and I don't know what to do. And she went and got someone from management who came in and just said, go and call your doctor. So she took my class, I went and called the doctor. I was on hold for so long. They got me an appointment for 11:15, but they said they'd call back if they were able to get me an earlier appointment. So I went back into my class. I was crying at this point. A couple of kids saw me crying on the way in. I was trying not to cry, but I mean, I couldn't really help it. The lady who was now taking my class was just like, go, you don't need to, like, she didn't ask me any questions. She was great. So I went home and I had just taken my shoes off, and the doctors called again and said, because you've had no blood tests and no scans, you should go straight to the hospital because they'll be able to do everything there, like, rather than kind of going to and fro. So they said not to come to the doctors at all, just to go straight to the hospital. I went straight to the hospital and I got there at 10:07, which I know because of my parking ticket. I went in the main entrance, told them what was up. They said go to their emergency department. So I went to the emergency department. They got me to fill out this form, and then they took my blood pressure, poked a thing in my ear and told me to sit down and wait. This was the point where I messaged Jonathan and told him what was going on, because obviously up until this point I'd just been rushing around trying to, like, get to, like, call the doctors first of all and then get to the hospital as fast as I could. So it wasn't until I was actually at the hospital waiting in the waiting room that I was able to message him and tell him that I was bleeding, and it was quite worrying. He asked if I wanted him to come home from work, and I was like, trying to be positive, and I was like, no, it's probably fine, like, it's all good. He actually called me while I was in the waiting room as well. We had a little chat. Anyway, so on my timestamps here, I've said I got my blood pressure taken at 10:30, which was fairly soon after I checked in to the hospital. I had a blood test at about 11 o'clock, so a different person came and got me, did my blood test, and I asked her how long it would take for the results of that to be visible, and she said about an hour. So I was like, oh, okay, cool, that's not too long. I thought it would be longer. So I was quite like positive at that point. I was like, cool, I'll have to probably go back to the waiting room for an hour and then I'll see the results and that'll be it. This is me at 11 o'clock thinking that I'd be home for lunch. I didn't bring any food with me, by the way, because when I left my home at like 9 something, I was like, it's ages away from lunchtime, I'm not gonna have to take any food with me. So then at 11:15, really soon after my blood test, 11:15, I got called in to see the doctor. And I was like, oh wow, like that was super fast. I had barely like sat back down in the waiting room. So the doctor did a little tummy exam. He like tapped my tummy in all these different places to check if it was an ectopic pregnancy, which is when the baby is not in your uterus, I think. It's like forming in the wrong place. But because I had no pain, he said it probably wasn't that. And he like asked about my symptoms and I was like, I mean, it's all fine. I showed him a picture of the blood. He was like, oh yeah, that's not too much blood. And I was like, cool, like everything sounds okay. And like I've read that you can have bleeding in pregnancy and a lot of the time it's nothing, like it just happens. So at this point I was quite positive. He said the results of my blood test were starting to come in already, so he could see that I had a normal blood count. He was like, that's good, we just need to wait for the rest of the results to come in. I'll call for you when I've got everything. And I was like, sweet, that shouldn't be too long now because, you know, at this point it's already been half an hour since my blood test and they said about an hour. So I was like, sweet. So I went back to the waiting room at about 11:30 and I was like, cool, like, you know, it's not going to be long now. And then we got to about, I remember Jonathan called me again just before 1. And I was like, I haven't eaten since 7 o'clock this morning, like my breakfast before school. I didn't bring any food with me. And he was like, you need to go and get something to eat. And I was like, well, I can't because they might call me while I'm not here. He said, you need to ask. So at like 1 o'clock, I went to ask the lady at reception if I could go and get something to eat. And she said that yes, I could because it was going to be a while. So I went to try and find the hospital cafe. When I got there, I realized that I couldn't really eat anything from there because everything had deli meat in it and I can't, you know, you can't have deli meat when you're pregnant. So I was just like standing there trying to figure out what to do. And a lady came in and called me literally in the cafe. She was like, sorry, like you need to come to get your scan now. I didn't even realize I was going to have a scan. So she was like, oh yeah, just make sure your bladder's full. And I was like, well, my bladder's not full because no one told me I was getting a scan. Like I knew it was a possibility, but no one was like, okay, now you need to drink water and not go to the toilet. So she took me through to a different waiting room specifically for scans. And then I waited there for a bit. So I tried to drink a bunch of water while I was there, but obviously like water still takes time to actually get to your bladder. In my notes, I've written that my ultrasounds were from 1:30 to 1:45. So at about 1:30, I guess it would have been, I went through to the ultrasound room and she did the external ultrasound. So she like put the gel and the thing on my belly. She had the screen turned away from me so I couldn't see what was on it. And the sound was off as well. So she just like did her thing for probably about 5 minutes and then she was like, cool, you can sit up. And I was like, well, did you see anything? By the way, this is all happening when I was 5 weeks and 5 days, so it was very early in my pregnancy. So the chances of her actually seeing anything on a scan was like relatively low, so we weren't really expecting too much from the scan. So I sat up and I asked if she could see anything, and she didn't answer. She was like, I just want to do the internal scan first before I say anything. So then I had to go to the toilet and empty my bladder, and then she did the internal scan, and the internal scan took a long time. Like, I swear it was at least 10 minutes. I was just lying there. She wasn't saying anything. I'm really bad at making conversation, but like normally, like when I got my blood test, the lady was like chatting to me. Like usually they try and distract you a bit from what's going on. Like they normally ask what you do for work, or they ask if you've got pets, or you know, they just generally chat, and it doesn't usually help much, but at least they're trying. Whereas this lady just said nothing. So I lay there in silence. She sat there with a thing up my vagina in silence for 10 minutes. It was so long. And then finally she was like, okay, I'm gonna leave and you can get changed. Here's a couple of tissues. Get yourself cleaned up and get dressed. So she left. I cleaned myself up and there was more blood at that point, which was a bit worrying because up until then I had only been spotting. And so I saw all the blood and I was like, that's not good. Anyway, I got dressed. She came back in and said that she couldn't see anything, but that it might just be because it's too early to see. So she'd been to talk to my doctor, sent him, I guess, the results of the scan, and then she asked me if I don't even know. I think this is the point where I started to lose it a little bit. Like, I think at this point I was starting to think that it probably was a miscarriage. And my brain was really foggy and I was trying not to cry. And she started asking me some question that just wasn't processing in my brain. And there were a lot of letters involved. I think she was asking me where I had come into the hospital, but she was using the acronyms and not the actual words. So it was just a whole lot of letters. And I remember saying to her, I'm not sure. And so she repeated it again. And I said, I don't know what those letters mean. And so then she was like, did you come in through the emergency department or something? And I was like, yes, I think so. And so she took me out into the hallway, pointed to the sign on the ceiling and was like, follow the signs for the emergency department and check in when you're there. So that was fine. I followed the signs for the emergency department, and the signs spat me out at a place that I had never been, and I just kind of stood there shell-shocked. At this point, I'm pretty sure I'm having a miscarriage. My brain's really foggy. I'm trying not to cry, and I'm in a place that I've never seen before. There's these ladies at a reception desk and they were like, how can we help? And I was like, I don't know. And then I just started crying. Those ladies were really lovely. One of them came out and just like scanned my bracelet, because they give you a bracelet to wear in the hospital as well. So she scanned my bracelet and walked me back to where I was meant to be. So that was really nice of her, because I was not in a state at that point. So then I got back to where I was meant to be, and I'd been told to check in. So I went up to the receptionist there and I was like, hi, I'm just checking in to find out where I need to go next or where I need to be. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know, I was just told to check in, like. And then I started crying again and she was like, are you okay? And I was like, no, like, why would you ask that? Like, I'm in a hospital, so obviously I'm not okay. I'm probably having a miscarriage, like, just, yeah. So as you can see, I had like fully lost it at this point. Anyway, she just basically told me to sit back down. I waited for ages again. I don't have any more timestamps on my phone, so I don't know what time anything else happened, but it was probably another half hour or something, and then the doctor called me in and I just cried as I walked through the door. He told me that my blood levels, the HCG, which is the pregnancy hormone, was at 20, which is super low, super low. And I knew that without him telling me. So I asked him, I was like, so I am having a miscarriage? And he was like, well, we think that's probably what it is. He asked me if I had any pain medication at home, and I said no, so he prescribed me some. And I was like, so should I expect a whole lot more blood? And he was like, well, possibly not, because you're so early in your pregnancy, like that might have been it, what you had this morning. And I was like, are you serious? Like, that's it? Like, we have a period every month and all the lining and stuff comes out every month. There's heaps of blood. So how would there be so little blood for a miscarriage? Like, surely the lining and all of that stuff that normally comes out for a period still has to come out for a miscarriage. So I was really surprised that he said I might not have much more bleeding at all. But anyway, I was like, all right. So he said I had to have another blood test on Friday to confirm. He was like, it might just be that you're super early in your pregnancy. So get a blood test Friday, go and see your GP. If the HCG levels go up, then it means that baby's still growing. If the HCG goes down, then we know that you've lost the baby. I sent Jonathan a text saying that they think it's a miscarriage, and he texted back and he was like, but they're not sure. I think from then I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just super early. They couldn't see it in a scan yet. We're just earlier on than I thought. Like, maybe I'm only 4 weeks, not 5.5 weeks. Maybe everything's gonna be okay. So I came home and I cried. Jonathan had come home from work at this point to be with me. I cried, he cried, but there was so little blood. Like, I just kind of spotted a little bit for the rest of the day. And so the rest of the day, I held on to that hope. I was like, maybe I'm still pregnant. I'm just way earlier than we thought that I was. I looked it up on the internet to see like what I could expect from miscarriage. And there was stuff about cramps. There was stuff about lemon-sized blood clots. And I was like, I've got no cramps. I've got no clots. Very little bleeding at this point. I was like, it might be okay. And then the next day came around, Wednesday, and it was still the same in the morning. There was very little blood, no cramps, and then I think like mid-morning, probably like 10 or 11, the cramps started, and I was like, okay, I have to take those pain medication things now. So I took the pain meds, and it was painful pretty much that whole day. The bleeding got a little bit heavier and continued to get heavier through the day, and I like gradually lost my hope that I was still pregnant and it was still okay. By the end of that second day, I had lost quite a lot of blood. I had been cramping all day, and I think at that point I had given up any hope. I was like, there's no way I can lose this much blood and still be pregnant. And then the day after that, which is now yesterday for me now, I took the pain meds in the morning. I'm allowed to take them 4 times a day. So I took the pain meds in the morning, so it was still quite painful. There was so much blood yesterday, in the morning especially. It got to like mid-afternoon when I could have taken my second lot of pain meds and I didn't need to. But, and the blood was starting to slow down as well, but that's when the tissue started coming out. I use period undies, by the way, so I wasn't using pads and like throwing them out. I was using period undies, and just so you know, I never like soaked through the period undies. I was using like the super ultra heavy 24-hour overnight ones, so like the heaviest duty ones that I have, but I never soaked through them. And I wasn't having to change them like too often either. I would just like change them every few hours when I went to the bathroom. So the blood was never like so heavy that I bled onto my clothes or onto my sheets or anything. But yeah, so that third day, by like yesterday afternoon, I was seeing less blood but more tissue, which was honestly like made me want to throw up. And because of course I was having to clean it, not like a pad where you just chuck it in the bin. I was having to clean it every time I took it off. I had a little cry every time I had to clean my undies. And that brings me to this morning. It has slowed down today. There's still a bit of tissue and a bit of blood, but like less than there has been. And I went and got my second blood test this morning, so I need to wait for the results of that, but this is the one that we're going to compare to the one at the hospital to see if my HCG has gone up or down. But like, I know that it's gone down because there is no way that I can pass that much blood and all that tissue and still be pregnant. Like, there is no way. So I'm seeing the doctor this afternoon at 4:15, as Jonathan said, basically to confirm what we already know, because there's no way that I'm still pregnant. I do have to say, work has been great. Well, I don't think many people at work actually know, but the one lady from management, the lady who came and took my class on that first day, she has sorted everything for me. Like, I haven't been at work since that first morning. Yeah, she sorted everything out with my class. I have no idea what my class has been doing all week. Absolutely no idea. So yeah, I'll pop back on this afternoon once I've been to the doctor to let you know what the doctor says, because they did also, the doctor at the hospital said something about cysts. I must have cysts on my ovaries, I guess. I don't really care. Like, obviously I was there because I was having a miscarriage, and that was kind of the only thing that I cared about. And still at this point, like 3 days later, I don't care that I have cysts, but I feel like it's something that I probably should ask my doctor about and ask, like, if I need to do anything. I don't know. I know that some cysts are fine and some cysts are not fine. So I guess I will ask about that. My main question is going to be, when can we start trying again? I've looked on the internet and the internet says as soon as you stop bleeding, it's safe to start trying again. It's recommended that you wait until you've had another period, but you don't have to. So I kind of just, like, Jonathan and I just want to try again. Like, we know at this point that we can get pregnant, which is a good thing for us to know. So I kind of just want to, like, try again because I want a baby. We want a baby. Like, that's why we're here. That's why I'm making these videos. But yeah, I'll let you know what the doctor says. I've had my doctor's appointment. Sorry, I'm a bit red. I'm falling asleep. I don't know why. I've done basically nothing today, except for get up at 6 in the morning to drive for half an hour to get a blood test, I guess. Yeah, so I've had my doctor's appointment. She said the HCG is now, like, her words were not even quantifiable. She said like 0, like there was no trace at all. So I mean, I knew that it was a miscarriage, so I'm not surprised by that. I'm surprised at how quickly the levels dropped though, because I had read that like, you can still get a positive pregnancy test up to a month after a miscarriage, and pregnancy tests are testing for HCG, so I thought that the levels might still be a bit higher, but obviously not. I would assume that if there's no trace of HCG, if I were to take a pregnancy test now, it would be negative. So yeah, all traces of pregnancy completely gone at this point. She said we can try again She has no concerns. She said we might want to wait a month, but she didn't say that we have to, so there we go. I asked her about having sex because I looked online and it said that you should wait at least until the bleeding stopped because of the risk of infection, and I asked her that and she was like, no, you don't have to wait, like you can have sex whenever you want, you can do whatever you want. So I don't know, like I feel like this is not a normal period, this is a miscarriage, so like I'm not going to have sex while I'm still bleeding with miscarriage blood. But I thought it was really interesting that she said that I can if I want to. I will go for now, but I'll pop back on at some point and let you know how long the bleeding lasts. I mean, it's like really slowed down at this point, there's not a lot of bleeding today, but I'll pop back on and let you know how long it actually does continue for, because the internet said that usually you like bleed on and off for 1 to 2 weeks with a miscarriage, so we'll see. I mean, it's already like today is day 4 of bleeding, so I'm pretty sure I'm through the worst of it at this point. But yeah, that's my miscarriage experience. Obviously, like I think I said this earlier today, I was really early on. If a miscarriage is like later in pregnancy, it's going to be worse, it's going to be more painful, it's probably going to last longer, there's going to be way more blood. But I was only like, I wasn't even 6 weeks, so it was a really, really early one. So for that, I'm quite grateful, to be honest. Like if I had to have obviously I didn't want a miscarriage, but if I had to have a miscarriage, I'm glad that it was early on, because at least physically it was a lot easier than doing it later on. But yeah, I'm gonna go now because I don't want to think about that anymore. It's the 16th of May. The bleeding has like definitely completely stopped now. So the update is that the bleeding lasted for 9 days in total. And the last couple of days were pretty light. So there was like day 8, I would say, was light bleeding, and then day 9 was really just spotting. Start to completely finish was 9 days. And I'm counting the first day of bleeding as the first day of a new cycle. That is the information that I found online. That's what it said to do. My cycle might not be regular straight away, like it might take me a little while to ovulate again and to have a natural period, but it is possible to get pregnant in the first cycle. So I'm counting first day of bleeding as day 1, which means I'm now on, actually I'm not sure, I think I'm on day 13. Yeah, I think today's day 13, which means, you know, I might be ovulating anytime soon. So yeah, we're pretty much just started trying again straight away. We waited until I stopped bleeding, obviously, but we're trying again now. I'm not doing any testing or like tracking anything this month. I'm just gonna leave it for the month, and if it happens, that's great, but if it doesn't, that's okay. And if it doesn't happen this month, I'll probably be doing those ovulation tests next cycle, because I have them. I've got 50 of them, so I may as well use them since they're just sitting there. But yeah, physically everything's back to normal now. It's as though nothing even happened. Obviously mentally it's a different story, but I've not been as upset for as long as I thought that I would be. And like, I am happy to try again straight away because I do really want this. Like, we're not we've not been so thrown by this that we don't want to try again. Like, we are trying already. It's the 29th of May, so cycle day 26 today, which means we're potentially getting close to when my period is due, although that very much depends on whether I've ovulated and if that was at the regular time, because obviously this is still the cycle where I'm counting from day 1 of my miscarriage. So things might be a little different, and it's really hard to know what's happened this month and whether it's gonna be a normal cycle length. But last night I was vomiting. I threw up all of my dinner. It was disgusting. Like, I went downstairs to get a bucket because I thought, like, I felt a bit queasy and I thought I might vomit at some point during the night, so I was just gonna keep a bucket next to my bed. I literally didn't even make it up the stairs. I was vomiting halfway up the stairs. I don't know what that's about. Obviously it could be an early pregnancy sign. If it is, it's very early. Like, people don't normally feel nauseous this early in pregnancy. Like my period's not even due yet, which means I'm not even 4 weeks. It's not been 2 weeks since ovulation. I have been sick with a cold the last few days, so it could also be because of that. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I've had lots of colds and I don't think I've ever thrown up from a cold before. Like I know in my first Trying to Conceive video, I told you about throwing up on my period, which actually was just my last cycle before this one. And even that, at the time, that was super unusual for me. I think before that, the last time I had actually vomited at all from anything was like 6 years ago when I had food poisoning. So I don't throw up a lot. Like, honestly, I don't throw up at all. So both of those times that I've vomited now have been like kind of a big deal for me. And like last time I was like, well, it's just because I'm on my period. But this time I'm not on my period. Like my period's not due for at least 2 more days. Jonathan reckons it's just stress because I've been quite emotional this week with just like a variety of things, including like a family member that's had a baby in the last 24 hours. So like the family chat has just been full of baby talk the last few days. So things like that, and I've just been a bit of a mess the last week. So Jonathan thinks it's just stress that's made me throw up in combination with me being sick. I don't know. Obviously I hope it's pregnancy, but I also don't want to get my hopes up just for my period to start in a few days. Oh, the other thing is my dermatitis on my hands is like the worst that it's ever been. And when I was pregnant just before, it got really bad as well. That's when I had to have my ring resized. I don't know if I mentioned that in these videos, but I had my wedding ring resized because my hands were just so swollen, and like the skin was all like peeling and really disgusting. And it's really bad again now. I've been trying to like use cream and also wear gloves a lot of the time recently to like try and help it get better. But yeah, I would say like the last week and a half maybe, it's been really bad. So again, that I'm like, is that another symptom? Is that like 2 symptoms that point to pregnancy? But also like that could also be because of stress. So I just have 2 things that either point towards pregnancy or stress. So I don't know what it is, but I thought since I'm coming towards the end of this cycle, it might be a good time to end this episode here so that I can start a new episode either with my period or hopefully with a pregnancy. I don't know at this point, but it kind of felt like this video was meant to be about the miscarriage, and now that that's all finished and we know what's happened with that, I feel like it's time to end this video and start a new one. So cross your fingers for me that the next Trying to Conceive video that I upload will be the pregnancy announcement, the one that sticks, and I'll see you then.